us. But we have three teams coming in starting in about an hour. So I'm going to cut out early. I'm sorry, but I've got Nebraska coming in, Texas A&M coming in, and Eastern Washington all flying in. Yes, all in about a matter of 3 hours. That is Oregon State women hosting a tournament. And we sent the boys out yesterday. Your team helped me, thank goodness, avoid the 777. We're going to take a 777 for the basketball team. The University of Oregon men's basketball, sorry. And I'm going to get in trouble for that, but yes, so Miss Tammy helped me avoid that one. Yes, she came up with a solution that I did not want to work that big of an aircraft.
That's crazy.
And you know what happened is the NCAA told them, no, you cannot spend that large of an aircraft to move one basketball team across the United States. It's a 332 passenger aircraft.
120 people.
Yes, and the basketball team technically only is about 18 coaches. So yes, they did have alumni. We ended up, I think it was 105 passengers, 100 to 105. So that was good. They took a smaller plane. But yeah, three teams coming in this afternoon. Yep, so I am gonna.
We've been hearing about football and how they're going to have to ship a lot of their equipment. Does that impact? Do you help with that?
We do what I believe will happen normally, when they were part of the Pac-12, they would truck their equipment down. The truck would leave on Tuesday afternoon after practice or something. They have two sets of gear, all the players do. So they would truck it down and then it would just get trucked back. But they can't do that now that we're going to go. So they're going to go with much larger aircraft next year. They're going to move up to a 757. And they'll take all of their football gear with them when they travel now. So loading the planes will take a lot longer. Just come up here. And yes, bigger aircraft, and the airport is widening our taxiways down there so we can take larger aircraft down there
Bring larger aircraft in
and bring larger aircraft in. So, and we're ramping up our equipment to be able to handle larger aircraft here too. I was not really prepared for that.
Dad, don't forget to get your picture taken before you have to run out.
Okay. Probably. So I'm off the hook.
You're off the hook.
Okay. That's too bad. I would have been fun. Well, there's a meeting tonight, so I'm sure I'll get to hold it. Thank you.
St. Helens, like 2.5 hours. So it's like kind of right in between. Yeah.
Captain, are you going on the trip to Medford? Did you hear about it? You were not at the last board meeting, right? So we're taking a bus now to Medford to see their indoor and their outdoor sports facilities. Because they are building, they have added, I don't know, like 4 or 5 hotels in the last couple of years, and they've got another half dozen in the works. They're doing, yes, like, oh my gosh, what we would pay for that. Yeah. And is the facility to the outdoor built already? The outdoor is built. I think the indoor just opened. It is in so you will see a note through the board, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again next Thursday. Are you coming to the board meeting then? Good.
Okay, all good. Agreed. Okay. Good afternoon, Airport Advisory Committee members and guests. Today is Wednesday, March the 20th, 2024. The current time is 12:02 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Team EUG is committed to creating a welcoming and safe community for everyone and a place where every person can experience a sense of belonging. The Airport Advisory Committee is committed to maintaining a respectful environment for all committee members and guests. The purpose of this committee is to develop recommendations for city staff by providing an ongoing citizen perspective, a review of the airport activity report, Airport Capital Improvement Program, Airport Enterprise Fund budgeting process, and changes to the airport administration policy. As stated in the committee bylaws, members have the obligation to consider the welfare of the entire city and to be fair, objective, and courteous. We have established the following meeting decorum guidelines to ensure a cohesive and equitable environment for committee members and guests. Guests at the meeting are asked to sign in and introduce themselves when requested. Public comment at the end of each meeting shall be limited to 10 minutes unless a majority of committee members present vote to extend the time. The presiding officer shall establish a time limit for each speaker and may limit the number of speakers. Guests at today's meeting are welcome to introduce themselves.
My name is Rodney with Sky Harbor Aviation.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Any other guests today?
Logan, OP, Eugene Airport Stat.
Okay. Welcome. And with that, I give the floor to Catherine Stevens for the airport director's report. You're welcome.
All right. Well, it's nice to see everybody in person again. Last month I was in Portugal on a little vacation. So it was wonderful. I would highly recommend it if you've never been to Portugal. It also gave me the opportunity to fly through a couple of international airports, which was an interesting experience, and figure out how to navigate through delays at an international airport. So I actually flew Eugene, Salt Lake, Charles de Gaulle, and Paris, missed my connection in Paris. So Delta rerouted me through Geneva, and that was an interesting experience, and then made my way to Porto, Portugal. So a very long journey, but made it there. So let's see, we've got the activity report up first. So we'll take a look at that. And you can see for our February activity report, operations were up 4% overall. Air carrier landings were also up by 4%. Our in-plane passengers up 6% and total passengers 6% up as well. Year to date, still down by 1%. Of course, we got hit hard by that ice storm in January. And so I think we'll probably recoup by next month being up again. Our airline load factor was slightly down at 75%, so down 1% compared to the year prior. And really, if you think about all of the additional capacity that we've had added by our airlines, it's still pretty amazing actually that they're still tracking with a fairly strong load factor. You can see the airline market share there with Southwest Airlines still holding the top market share. And our in-plane air cargo was up 21%. So that's pretty significant. I'm really curious to try to understand what that is. And Chad, I don't know if you have any thoughts on it. Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to try to dig into that and see. Maybe it's an anomaly, but maybe it's a trend, which would be great. And year to date, air cargo up 2%. Okay. And then in the forward-looking schedule, departures and seat capacity. So departures for March are showing up by 7%. I think Randy's trying to switch the slide here. It's a little delayed. Yeah. And then seat capacity for March is also 6% up. So that reflects the increases in service that we've seen in our market.
What was the anomaly that's up?
Air cargo. Yeah. It's actually up significantly, 21% for February, which is, that's odd. So we're trying to figure out what that was. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to see it going back up, but don't know what it is. And then, so there's the departures and seat capacity slide for March. And then hopefully the next one that we'll switch to will be July. And so in July, we're showing a 5% reduction in departures and a 6% reduction in seat capacity. Of course, that's a forward-looking schedule, and we'll see if there are changes made by the airlines. But if you consider all of the capacity that we've added, this may be our market moderating finally. We'll see. And then on the load factor comparison, and this is actually reached back to December of 23, our load factors were strong again. It was in 2022, it was 84%. And in 2023, it was 81%. And again, with all of that added capacity, that's pretty amazing that we just absorbed all of that additional capacity. And our passenger numbers percent change was 12% up between 22 and 23. Hopefully we'll get the next slide up, which is the February 2024 general aviation comparison. Oh, good. There it is. So you can see GA local traffic. It's pretty steady as it goes over the last 3 years. And itinerant traffic for Eugene is the dark line on the left. So a little bit down of itinerant traffic for February of 24. Okay, we can go to next, unless you have questions on the activity report. We will go on to the financial report.
All right. Revenue was strong. It's right about at budget at 3% over. And it's 13% over last year. So we're making good progress there. Operating, the personnel is down 18%. As you recall, we had 3 positions open. One of them we're looking to fill within the next 3 weeks, so that might come up a little bit. Materials and services, it's under 9%. Capital, excuse me, is chugging right along. You will see an uptick in that capital expenditure because we're buying some zero-turn mowers and different things for landscaping to keep up the property. The equipment's just burning out and we have to replace it. Central services is always equal to it. So at the end of the month, we netted 3.6 million without any relief grants or transfers to capital. We did transfer $6 million to capital to keep that funding all our nice projects. And we took in a little over 2.5 million in ARPA funds, and that will be the last of the ARPA. That all of our relief funds are gone now. So when all that's taken into account, we were at 158,000 in the positive, which is great. The graphs, my favorite part. Okay, so we're looking at the orange bar. That will be this year. As you can see, it's just kind of hitting the same trend as last year, a little bit up. This is the revenue. So revenue being above last year is fantastic without any relief grants. Expenditures, same thing, following a trend there, about equal to January. December has a spike because usually we have to do extra things in December. We have more people in the building and, you know, weather's worse and all of that. So December usually sees a spike. Here's the good one, net cumulative gain without the relief grants. And we're looking at that top one. So we're still trending above every other year. And that one, when you get it in your packet, take a good look at it. You can really see the impact of COVID-19 and then the quick recovery. This is a really interesting graph, but as you can see, we're still trending well above everything else. So finances are still looking pretty good.
Any questions? Financial report. Okay, we'll move on to the project.
Thank you. Hello, so let's now talk about some projects. The first project here is taxiways Juliet and Lima widening. It will, well, you can get the next slide, please. So it will consist of taxiways Juliet, Lima, Alpha, and then also the apron itself. The project is set to take roughly 60 days. Phase 1, 2, and 3 are all going to be concurrent with each other. Next slide. So this will be the phase 1 area. Again, it's highlighted in blue here. So we'll widen the Juliet Lima taxiways and then also do a seal coat and new lead-in lines on the cargo apron, and then also work on Alpha as well. And then on the operational impacts there, we will make sure everybody's aware, GA and other areas of what's closed. Here, again, the whole apron will be closed, so our cargo will have to relocate. We're thinking to EGAR throughout this project. And then making sure we're done by the deadline, I believe, of August. Here's the phase 2 area. Again, this will be concurrent with the phase 1 area, and we'll have some closures during this time as well. To note here, we'll have runway 16 right, 34 left closed for 2 to 7 days, I believe. Next slide, please. Here's the phase 3 area. We will have gate B3 closures throughout this time. This will be a fairly short phase. And again, will be concurrent throughout the phase 1 area, so throughout the whole project duration. The next project we currently are working on is runway 34 right environmental assessment. So there's 2 parts to this project. There's the environmental assessment, and there's also going to be the mitigation of the actual wetland. Currently, we're working on the environmental assessment, which includes a lot of different documentation. Right now, we're working on our public involvement plan and some other plans with this project. Right now, looking into design, we're wondering and hoping that some drainage improvements along that old airport road will help to mitigate the wetland, and then we won't have to bring in a lot of fill for it. Again, in design, we will end up knowing more of what it'll take to mitigate that wetland, but it has been identified as a wildlife hazard. So again, needing to fill that wetland or mitigate it for operational safety. And then here's some pictures. So the picture on the left is looking out towards the south of the wetland. And then the other picture is looking towards the east, and that is where hopefully the drainage improvements will help to mitigate the wetland and keep the water moving in that area instead of pooling there. The next project we actually just kicked off this week, which we are really excited about, is the Concourse A seating expansion and ADA egress ramp. So this project is phase 2 of our looking at terminal expansions of the Concourse A area. Conveniently enough, though, it's going first, even though it's considered phase 2. We might be reworking some names here as we continue. But in the graphic there, the blue highlighted area is also represented in that photo. So that is where we're looking to expand the Concourse A area to accommodate more passenger seating. If any of you have flown out at peak times, it gets pretty busy up there. So we're really hoping to alleviate some of that stress of that area and provide a better experience. And with that, we may consider relocating the actual walkway and put the seating on the other side and looking at different configurations for that. So we're in the design process for that. And throughout design, we'll get a lot more information about what is optimal for flow of passengers and passenger experience. And the pink rectangle on the graphic is a proposed location for a ADA egress ramp. Currently, for passengers or individuals to get out from that second story, you need to take an elevator. So as you can imagine, that can be problematic for people in wheelchairs. So that is one of our priorities within this project. Within this project, we also, so this would be phase 2. And then we also have a phase 2A, which we are looking at adding different components into the project. And that will kind of depend on grant funding. So we are looking at doing a ADA and gender neutral restroom upgrades, ADA carpet replacement, adult changing room upgrades, a sensory room addition, pet relief area wayfinding upgrades, HVAC modernization, and then identifying necessary enabling projects. So again, this is phase 1, but will be constructed after this previous project I talked about. And again, we're going to look at renaming some of these phases. So this is a terminal expansion outbound baggage area. Again, this is both of these projects we're talking about here are enabling projects for Concourse C. Doing this project will enable us to process more and have more flow through of traffic. And again, looking at potential grant funding to help us construct this portion of the terminal expansion. And then again, this is, we're looking to hopefully start design summer, and then construction would be 26. And then that previous project, construction will be 25. So just right around the corner. And then some of the projects we talked about are listed here, but additionally, some upcoming environmental and design projects that we are working on is a relocating and a new rotating beacon, a new maintenance facility, and then a new landscape shop and fuel relocation. We talked about the 3-4 white wetland EA, but we will also again have to mitigate that wetland, which will be in 2025. Looking into some parking lot rehabs to use existing area, but increase our actual parking spaces and spots. And then the terminal expansion, the outbound baggage, and then also the seating expansion that we talked about. And then obviously a lot of these projects in mind are enabling projects for the Concourse C expansion. And does anybody have questions for us? Yeah.
So,
Oh, do you want this? Do you want this?
can, sure. You want me to have it?
I don't care. I can hear you, but I don't know about everybody else.
Okay. The runway closure that you referenced with respect to the project you're doing, does that ever result in any changes in noise patterns? Because aircraft are using different runways in different ways and those sorts of things. I have no idea, but does it cause any changes in the normal noise patterns, especially for populated areas?
But I don't know.
It does.
Oh, it does.
Yes, yeah.
It will.
So if we move commercial traffic over to a secondary runway, then it does impact the Bethel neighborhood. And so we try to keep it to a minimum. There's always just some use of that runway by commercial aircraft anyway, just because when we're doing maintenance on the main runway. But that project, I think, is pretty, not a whole lot of days, is it?
No.
Yeah.
It should be 7 at most.
Yeah. Well, we we do project announcements. I don't know that we've ever specifically said that because it is a smaller group, but we could certainly communicate it to the Bethel neighborhood group. Mhm. Sure. Mhm. Yep, we can certainly do that. Yeah. Any other questions on projects? I was just going to add in on the cargo apron, Juliet Lima expansion. So that total price is a $6.7 million project with 1.4 coming from Connect Oregon grant, 3.6 in passenger facility charges, and 2.2 in local funds, in case you were curious. And then on the two projects that we need to rename, which phase they are. So I was in DC last week for airport legislative conference and then also for Hill visits. And so our congressional delegation is aware of these projects because they're also really dependent on a couple of federal agencies, right? So one is the TSA for the bag system, and then the other, we really will be completely reliant on an airport terminal grant to be able to expand that C concourse or A concourse. And so we're already kind of priming them for needing to, because we've tried a couple of times to get these grants. It's very competitive. And even though we think we're hitting the mark on the things that they're looking for, like ADA improvements and those kinds of things, we think what we really need is a letter writing campaign this time around. And so we'll be asking the congressional delegation for letters of support for that project. And I'm sure we'll be asking one from the advisory committee and also from our community partner groups so that we can hopefully nudge that one over the finish line this time. Because without it, it's just going to wind up having to be a part of the bonded project eventually, and that's going to be further out. All right, any other questions on that? Okay, and so I kind of give you a little legislative hit there, but we have, at least we got our temporary funding, right? So no government shutdown. We're not going to be having delays in our airport improvement program grant funding. Air traffic controllers are going to stay working. Yeah, then they're all on different timelines. So, tracking on all of this is a lot. And then at least our congressional delegation feels hopeful about getting a FAA reauthorization bill finished up before we really hit the election cycle hard. And that's really key, because if we don't get that done before the election, it's going to be a pretty heavy lift to get any movement on that. So, but they feel good about it. We're hearing that also from the rest of Congress, is that they're feeling like, yes, this is a priority and it's something we can all get into an agreement on to be able to get that passed. And what that does for us is it makes for stable funding for us, and we know that we'll be getting the grant funding as those funds become available, instead of having to either postpone projects or risk doing the project and hoping that the funding comes through eventually. Yeah. And then for air service, I don't think I really have any updates since the last time I talked to you about this. We know we've got a couple airlines that are interested, but their timeline seems to be a little further out. So we'll keep tracking on that. All right. Unless there are other questions on that, we are really fortunate today to have Natalie Inouye giving us a presentation about Traveling County and Tracktown USA and all those good things.
Okay. So last time I talked to you about Traveling County and what we do. This time we thought it would be fun, because it's spring, to talk a little bit about Tracktown. So I don't know about you, but today being the first day of spring really got me thinking about some of my favorite places to go. And Hayward Field is one of those. How many of you have been in Hayward Field? The new one, yeah. Well, even in the old one, there was a really sweet spot right there by where the steeplechase happens, the water thing. Have you ever seen the daffodils there? It's one of my favorite spots. It's just so beautiful. And it's also a little bit funny because here's this spectacular little vision of these beautiful daffodils with this little water thing. And you think about the athletes who are running over, jumping over that hurdle right into the water, right at that spot. So it's just kind of a funny thing. So what I thought I would do is to talk about kind of three things. One is the why Tracktown? Why is it here? The next thing would be why should we care? And the third one would be how do you get involved if you are interested in engaging at a little deeper level, which we all kind of want you to do. So at the base of it, because of the stadium, this Hayward Field, we have thousands of youth who came into this community last summer where they were competing here and they fell in love with the town. And as they were leaving, they were all wearing University of Oregon sweatshirts and committing to come back here for college. So it really was making an impression on them. And then for Oregon 22, when we had the world here, we had over 1 billion people watching Eugene on their televisions, seeing images of this. So the impressions that we were making around the world was really spectacular. So this single venue is really doing some amazing things for this economy. And then obviously for our residents, we get to see the best competitors in the world right here. So where did it start? Bill Hayward, Hayward Field. Here is the genius that really got us kicked off. 44 years that he spent as the coach for the University of Oregon. He was also a coach for some of the athletic trials teams. And really the biggest claim for us, his biggest claim to fame, is that he was responsible for bringing in Bill Bowerman. Bill Bowerman is really the magic for Hayward Field. He was the person who started a little company named Nike that we all know about. He was responsible for bringing in Prefontaine. He was responsible for a lot of things. Can we go? And his coaching was legendary, but it was really his work off of the track that was really spectacular as well. So I've got notes here. And so in addition to what he did on the track and off the track at Nike, he also, I think everybody is mostly aware that he also helped start the whole jogging craze. He'd gone to New Zealand.
She's rejoining.
Okay. Okay, so he brought that back to the United States, and he really did kind of galvanize people in the Eugene area, particularly invited them to come onto Hayward Field, invited them to be a part of this movement, and increase the health and fitness of our community in some really great ways. And then we have Steve Prefontaine, who is an entity in and of himself. So I think we can go to the next one. So this team did some amazing things. And the start of the Oregon Track Club happened around that time. The start of us hosting the Olympic team trials, track and field started around this time. Really bringing people into the stands was what it was all about. So let's go to the next one. And so if, depending on where your personal knowledge is around this sport, if you are a reader, there are some great books that really do tell the history. They're inspiring, whether it's about Steve Prefontaine, some of the mega stars that have been a part of this, to just jogging in and of itself. There's some great books. There are also a couple of fun movies, mostly about Steve Prefontaine, that were filmed here. And I don't know if you know that one of the films that was made about Steve Prefontaine was actually filmed up at UW. So that was a little bit interesting. But the Prefontaine one that was here, Without Limits, was filmed right here in the stands with a lot of extras that you probably know some of the people who did that. Okay, so if you want to learn more, you can do that. And then if you want to experience yourself, we've created a Tracktown top 10 list, because really Hayward Field is spectacular, and I'm going to talk about that just a smidge more in a second. But you feel that love of Tracktown in key places throughout the community. And so when people come in to this place, they start with Hayward Field. Everybody must see Hayward Field if you're a fan, but you also want to know, where's Pre's Rock? That's one of the top things that people are looking for. Or where can I run on the Prefontaine Trail? So we have a list of the places and some of the great running trails that you can run on our website that makes it just the experience just a little bit easier to access. So next slide is about some of the stars that have been on this track, and they feel the Hayward magic. So my, I'm sorry about the fonts, it messed up a little bit. But anyways, those amazing athletes have spent time on this track and they call it Hayward magic. They feel it when they're there, when they're competing, when they're in this, when they are running around and interacting with the people in the stands. I get chills when you listen to the athletes when they are interviewed, how much they talk about Hayward magic. I don't know if you noticed that, but especially during the World Athletics Championships, they were all just effusive in saying that, you know what, this is a special place. And it is a special place, but we don't always feel it. And so what's important for us is to start thinking about, okay, we want the athletes to feel that, to feel as if this is their place, but we also want to make sure that our So we want to do a couple of things. One is that we want more people to get on the field. So we have some great things happening in this community all the time where it's not just the elite athletes who are getting on Hayward Field. If you run in the Eugene Marathon, you get a finish at Hayward Field. If you are in the track program in a high school and you are in that group that's going to the championships, you get to compete at Hayward Field. So while there are more restrictions of getting onto the field, there also intentionally are ways that people can get on the field, walk on the track, be in the in-ground, and be a part of this experience. Okay, so next, okay. So how can you get, wait, I might have. Yep, we'll just do, so not everybody can compete on the field. Sometimes you want to be in the stands watching, and this is the lineup of events that are coming just this summer. And this is the reason that last month when we had the report, Cedric and I were on the side saying, wait a minute, June numbers are down. There are fewer seats on planes, and we have all of these people coming in June. And so the connection between what we're doing and what the airport is doing is really important, because we need to have enough planes bringing enough people so that those people can fly directly into Eugene and they're not going to Portland. Speaking of Portland and the interconnection with the airport, the other thing that's really important is the service, not only the quantity, but also the size of the planes. There was a time when a person who was a javelin thrower or a pole vaulter could not fly into Eugene because the aircraft wasn't large enough to carry their implements. And so they had to go to Portland. So it's great that we've made the improvements that we have that allow all of this cross collaboration to happen. So this is a way that you can be in the stands for a reasonable fee and see some of these amazing things, some of these amazing athletes. And then the next one, so that's how you experience it. This is why you should care. And I don't know if you can see all this, but what this is that this is a look at last year's track events, how much those events brought into our economy. And then we just kind of looked around, and the visitors, that shows the percentage of visitors to residents that we had while those events were in town. So we had an influx of visitors, and then the last 5 are the top arrivals during those time periods. Now, this is not only connected to track, so we weren't able to connect these people to Hayward Field, but during these dates, when you look at the numbers of people who are coming into our community from outside of the area, so potential to fly, this is where they were from, straight across the board. Pretty consistent with what we see normally. But look at those places and look at the flights that we have and how awesome that is. if you were to dig deeper, the exciting thing about these events are that you would see, if we went to the top 20, you would see cities from all over the country. And so the impact of these events on our community and the connection to our airport is really, really important.
You put up a week in there that's not the track events to see if it's the same cities.
There, it is, there's a very close similarity to that year round. And so what that tells us is that for the track of
It may not be correlated, but it's still, it's information.
Right, yes. So absolutely, there are a lot of similarities. So what it tells us is that these are important cities, and the fact that we have air service makes it easier for them. And it also doesn't tell us that Seattle, a lot of those are probably driving. The other ones, you're gonna get more that are flying.
And the like 24%, the visitors column, that's 24% of what?
So of 100%, 24% of the people in market were visitors.
So like, is that through like hotel data?
No.
or-
No, it's through device ID.
Oh,
So,
got it.
so we have the ability to look at the devices, and that's how we're looking at device ID, and we're also looking at credit card spend
It's
in
not
terms
scary
of,
at all.
that, right? We can't see you. That's the good thing, is that we can't see you. I know, yeah.
It's actually been really useful data. So our air service consultant uses cell phone data as well. It's been very useful. Just another argument to add service. And so, I mean, if you look Sacramento being up there, and we know Sacramento's also a track town, not Track Town USA.
Right.
Also a track
They
town.
hosted the
And
trials.
it's also one of our most recent ads for nonstop service. So it totally makes sense.
I find myself looking for that control line, which is a week without, and not wanting to understand like what is our just on average kind of geo.
Yeah.
20, visitor percent.
Yep, there are some similarities, and this data that we have, just I'll get to you in just a sec. The data that we have access to is actually pretty exciting, because I pulled this from a report that also told me exactly that, not on this number, but they have a new event piece to it. It's Zardico. We subscribe to a company called Zardico that gives us this data, and we can look at it. And this new thing does exactly that. And so in some of the reports, it'll say, okay, you have this much percentage increase of visitors this month or this week over this time last week. So they do that. And I looked at that and I thought, oh, wow, it is surprising how similar it is, even in the percentage of visitors. So while I'm saying that this is really cool, and they're spending at a different level because they're doing different things, that is pretty consistent, that even percentage of visitors and the destinations when you look at track events versus other weekends. So the control thing is I'll start doing that. I did look at it and found that.
My question is, it could be people coming from all over connecting through these cities, not, or are you just looking at people that flew nonstop?
This is in market. So Zardico saw that your phone was here and that you live in Seattle.
You live there. Okay, so
that's
that
what
means
is.
they're, okay.
It's not air flight patterns.
Just where people live. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because when I look at that, I see like, there's gonna be hundreds of people connecting through those cities.
Yep, and that's not it. They might be, but what's great about that is that those are a lot of direct flights.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where they live, or is it where their area code is, and they've never changed their cell phone?
There are all sorts of,
Device. So the towers they're using, it's actually.
yes.
Physically that's great. They know because your phone's there all the time.
Yeah.
If you go somewhere else, then they know.
And then you've got students, and then you have, and I mean, like, yeah, once you dig into all the details, and then you have students who are here. So what happens is that I am coded as a local because I live here, my phone is here all the time. If I go away for 2 months and I come back, I'm going to be a visitor for a while until I'm here for 2 weeks or whatever the numbers is. I mean, it's really very sophisticated how they are trying. They're doing more and more to get closer and closer to the truth, because the reality is that they're not tracking every phone. You have to be subscribing to the right app, doing the right things. And so the number of people that we actually see, it's just like a survey. It is a sample size that they're using to get this. The EEI is coming from our work as we are analyzing. There's another place that we get data there that really does dig into. In an event, they come in, it's a sporting event, we expect them to spend this many dollars on this type of thing. And that's a really interesting report that we could look at sometime also. So if any of you get a kick out of data and like this and have a use that you would want, we are happy to at any time dig into it with you. Give us a problem that we need to try to solve, and we'll see if this gives us the answers. But right now, the problem that we're trying to solve is the next slide, which is this is what the stands look like in Old Hayward in the day. That's what we want to look like again, because what they see now, go to the next slide, is this, which is still looks nice, but we've been in those stands where, look, they have to block off some of the things because there are just not enough tickets. So that's on us. That's on us trying to like make sure that our community understands why this is an important thing to our community and why they should care, and why, if we can just get them into those stands so that they can feel that magic, they might feel it too. But instead, what happened is that when we hosted the Olympic team trials back in 2008, the first time that we had them in a while, our messaging was that it's going to be busy. You're not going to want to go down there. So we did everything that we could to exclude people instead of include them. And so we're trying to make up for that now. And so we're doing a lot of things. Let's go to the next slide and see if that's the one I think it is. So we're trying to create, the banners, do the banners one, please. So this is a placeholder because something's happening out there in the track community, and that's that they are working together. They recognize that we need to reinvigorate the community. We need to rebuild that love of Tracktown and that feeling that it is Tracktown for the community. And also we need to send out the welcome to the people who are coming in town. And so what they're doing is that there's a group, we just got this yesterday, so I'm going to pass it around because I think it's really cool. But you know the banners that you see when you drive over Ferry Street Bridge? Go ahead. When an event comes in, they'll often put them out there. Well, what the track community is doing is that they are buying the space for an extended time. I think it's April sometime through July. And instead of just having Prefontaine Classic, they're going to have Prefontaine Classic. They're going to have Eugene Marathon, so that you feel that Tracktown isn't a single event. It is a lifestyle. It is all of these amazing events that are coming through town. And so that's what you're going to see here pretty soon on Coburg Road, on MLK Boulevard, and on Ferry Street Bridge. So we're starting to do that. And then it's time for us to work with the hotels at a higher level so that when the athletes come in, when the coaches come in, when the officials come in to the lobby, they feel it too. So we need to figure out how to work with the key places that our visitors and our athletes are going so that they know that we care about them. So those are some of the things that we're doing. And and I didn't put this in there because we got it yesterday and I wasn't sure if I was really supposed to share it, but I thought, if I bring it this way, no one will know. Okay. And then the last thing is really about, let's go to the last, is really about, okay, what's it going to take for us to feel that magic? Because I think that anybody who has been in those stands feels that there's an energy in there, even if there are not a lot of people in the stands, that is the most spectacular. That Hayward Field could be anywhere in the world, and it's here in Eugene. And when you go in there, you feel as if you are in a world-class facility. So we want to get people into the stands so that they can feel that. But you know what? Has anybody volunteered? I brought my favorite volunteer shirt today, and I brought it because this was the one that the young kids were trying to get off of the volunteers' backs. So I know that it was popular with the young ones. But has anybody volunteered last year?
Know somebody.
Okay, and they probably talk about it with great affection, right? You get a lot of swag. Volunteer just for the swag. And then there's something about being on the field. I was on the field with those kids that I was telling you about, and I was listening to them because they're out there just chatting away and they're wearing their duck stuff that they just bought, listening to them talk about this place and what it means to them and how much fun they're having. Being on the track in Hayward Field, down there in the infield, and having these amazing elite athletes running this close to you, you get chills and then you feel that magic too. We need more of our community to feel that again so that they understand it and they realize what it can mean to them as well. So that's our mission, is to get the community to feel it a little bit, to get into the stands, to participate, and to really embrace this. When you talk about branding and you talk about what people are trying to do with that, they're trying to find what is the unique to the community. And when you look out there, it's really hard to find a unique brand. We have it and we own it, but Sacramento wants to take it away. Texas wants to take it away. You know, I mean, like, it's ours to lose. And so we need to figure out, do we really want this thing? Is it really unique to us? Is it really bringing in millions of dollars to us? We think so. We want, and so what you'll hear slowly is just a little more about track. And if you believe in that, get into the stands and participate in some way, big or small. I think that's all that I have. Yep, that was one of our funnest, that was a really fun little shot from World Athletics. So any questions, anything additional to say, any way that I can get you to join me out on the track? Okay, thank you all.
You're giving the mic back too soon, Natalie. We might have questions for you. So can you talk a little bit about kind of how we interface with the airport with the different track and field events? And because it is kind of we think it's easy now because we've done it so many times, but there's a lot to it.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So actually, you probably can explain it more because we're the ones who are asking you. But we have groups that are coming in, and we have to figure out how do we get people here and there. There were some additional. Having the additional shuttles that came in that are picking up at the University of Oregon was a really important addition, and I don't know how new that was, but that allowed people to get both to Eugene and also to Portland, everywhere. The welcome that happens here, being able to activate welcome banners and signs and all of that, and our work with Andrew, the way that the airport has embraced just that welcome. This is the first place that they go. They walk off the plane, and Worlds, when it was dressed to the nines, I mean, like, you could not go anywhere in this airport without feeling as if you were in Tracktown. So those kinds of support things are super helpful. The air service that we talked about, being able to understand, this is when we have demand, this is where people are coming from, what can we do there? We weren't able to do that with the train. We were trying to get the train service changed, but we did have increased service at the airport at key times because that's what we needed. What else? What else am I forgetting? The lobbying. I mean, like, just the support for track, because it is something that we all have to work together on. We want to have more international track meets, and you can only do that if you have good air service. So really, the air service is the size of the planes that we talked about, the most important thing. And the airport has been an exceptional.
And so has Travel Lane County. So yeah, we will just on our air service work with our airline partners. So we'll give them these schedules way far out in advance, especially if we've got a really major event like Olympic track and field trials or the Worlds. We'll try and give them good data, which can sometimes be a real challenge. But they want to hear about it way far out in advance, and every single time we talk to them. And then it's kind of like any event planning. The closer we get to the event, the more frequently they want to hear from us, and the better data we can give to them. So we've even pulled, like for the Worlds, we pulled data from London and Doha to try and give them an idea of where in the world people would be coming from, athletes and coaches. Specifically, because typically then that means that the fans also come from those same areas. So, yeah, and then they will add either upgauge aircraft or add capacity or both, right? So frequencies. So, we have seen them be very responsive, and I think they've also seen that it is a good business decision for them, to add in capacity when there is such a major event. All right. Thank you so much, Natalie. Unless there's other questions. Yeah. Okay, and then I guess I hand this back to you, Cedric.
Okay, at this time, we'll open the floor to committee members for questions, comments, anything else to add?
Thank you.
So I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask a question like this, but I'm still new, so I can get away with it. Is it appropriate for a committee member to float an idea for a piece of information or a presentation that they and perhaps obviously the rest of the committee might like to hear about? Is that okay? I was wondering if the committee might be interested in hearing a presentation about emergency preparedness and the Eugene Airport's part in that. And I haven't fleshed the idea out. I'm not an expert on that, and you probably know more about it anyway. But things that came to mind were like, does the Eugene Airport have an emergency preparedness plan? A little bit about how it works, how you interface with the community in terms of the needs that the community might have in an emergency, and also, are there any connections between the airport and authorities, emergency preparedness people at higher levels, the state, the federal government, those kinds of things? I just thought that might be something that would be worth having a little discussion about. So I suggest that idea.
The answer is yes. To all of them.
Okay.
It's yes. Then I don't. Security stuff, I think that. Like in the summertime.
Yeah, so we can definitely just add that. So this is Tammy's purview here. She's also our emergency manager. So yeah, we'll put something together for you also. We can let you know, but it was a yes to all of those things. And it's actually pretty detailed. Yeah, so we'll bring that to you.
Full scale exercises with all of our partners. We partner with and have had
we have agreements with FEMA and DOD and all of those. And so, yeah, absolutely.
Just conducted some training this week down at Lawrence Air. We got some new equipment for larger aircraft. And so we brought the fire department in. They know how to operate all of our air stairs and things like that for emergencies. And so we did training. We do an annual training with them. And this year we got new equipment because we're preparing for next year's larger aircraft here. So we had the whole fire department down on their different shifts throughout the week this week. And they all learned how to start and operate air stairs. And I hope they never have to use the training that we had this week.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions from any of our visitors today? Okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you all for your time. The current time is 12:54 p.m. Meeting adjourned.